So Little River's still under contract with the district, right?
We have,
Uh,
yes.
They're just not in compliance.
Correct.
So it's kind of like a lease agreement, and they're not paying the rent,
That's correct.
right?
Yeah.
So they're accumulating debt that they owe us until we actually get someone else to come in here, correct? What I'm saying is they owe us rent. Whether they're operating the hospital or not, you owe rent. So if my business is renting a building, I owe that rent, whether I occupy it or not. And they used the thing that they were going to file bankruptcy. Well, I told y'all the first night I came, they're not going to. And they're not, and they haven't. And the reason they haven't is because no bankruptcy judge is going to grant them bankruptcy protection with the millions in receivables they have. So what do we do next?
I'll address that as best I can.
At the advice of our attorneys, we have not decided to sue Little River at this time. We are hoping that they will be able to negotiate with all of the vendors that they have not paid without having to force them into bankruptcy. So,
I got a question. You know, earlier y'all were talking about the medical records. A lot of people put in requests for medical records to be turned back over to them for tests and stuff before Little River left. So my question is, does that mean that we're gonna all have to resubmit a request now to get those records, or are those documents still there with that request filled out? And will y'all go ahead and, you know, move that forward to get those records to us?
are you saying if someone has a request and has not received them yet?
Right.
Well,
I think
okay.
there's a whole bunch of people that requested them.
They'll get their records.
Okay, what kind of time frame do you think we're looking at, roughly?
Let's see, I know there was a large number of requests. That's a good question. I think there's about 80 coming in, new requests coming in per day. I know there's probably about 250, 300 requests left that we have a group here working on. I would encourage you, if you are here and you would like us to check on that, please see me afterwards and I'll get your name and information. But nobody should have to put in a new request. If they've entered it, we are getting to the ones that's left over.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Roger Zink. I guess we can either look forward or we can look back. And I think you guys are doing a good job looking forward. All that stuff about the debt is what it is. We have to pay it someday in the future. I'm interested in what's going to happen in the future. We opened the meeting by saying that we have a waiver for a period of time through September 30th, which is, I think, good news. We ought to note that and tell everybody, recognize. My question is what is the plan in that short period of time between now and September 30th? I happen to run a ranch and my own experience with the hospital is basically the argument. What is the plan for that ER? And I'll close by saying that I agree that the board is going to help us out. And I hope we can get out and talk about it and get other people recognized.
As far as plans going forward, remember we're less than a month into this, and we just found out last week we have the ability in the next 60 days to come up with a plan. So all I can say is we are going to work our hardest to try to first get some kind of emergency services back in our community, and then hopefully a hospital. It'll be a challenge.
When Deborah and I and James Turner went to the Capitol, the regulations state that when a hospital closes, it's closed. You have to start over again. I really didn't have much expectations when we went into that meeting with Dr. Elstead. He heard our emotional presentation, and sitting across the table from him, he was very enclosed. I didn't have any idea what the man was going to say. And when he said, here's what I propose, is to give you a 60-day extension that will be somewhat open-ended, I could have fallen out of the chair. He didn't have to do that. The question was asked, would you give us 90 days? And he said, well, if we do that, it will be a drop dead. At 90 days, you must have this hospital open or not. So we're back to 60 days with an open end, and we need to have some plans or a plan in place, but we have that option. I think that I'll call it a struggle to get our clinic back is our first priority. At this point, we really can't engage a emergency room or hospital this time. We've got 60 days, and we're going to use them. But please understand what we're dealing with. We have to have health care. Christus has come to us with a plan for a clinic, and we're, by God, going to work that plan. If we can work a plan for some type of an emergency room or other facilities, in 60 days, we're going to do that. But understand what we're working on.
May I ask you one question on that? Is there any negotiation with anyone for the hospital at this point in time?
No negotiations, we're still talking.
So you are talking to some people, but not any negotiation?
So my husband and I moved here 4 years ago, Mike, something like that. We bought a home, and we moved from Katy, so we're very aware, or our doctor, our primary care doctor, is associated with Christus in Katy, Christus St. Catherine. At least that's what it used to be known, but the name changed. But we have been very pleased and very pleased with the level of health care that we have received through Christus St. Catherine and Katy, and our doctors that are there. So happy to say that we're happy to know that they're looking at coming in here and opening up a clinic, if not a hospital. I guess if we look at, I guess the question, I really have questions, I don't really have more comments, but my understanding is that when ETMC pulled out of Crockett, and the board doesn't need to address this tonight, you can address it and Linda can print it in the newspaper. When ETMC pulled out, there was no debt. So the first debt was $4.2 million to buy the plants and facilities back from ETMC. And so there is a note about that. My understanding is that the board is paying $33,000 plus a month interest-only payment, so that has nothing to do with the principal. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Deborah. But then there is a secondary debt to Prosperity Bank for $3.5 million, and so my assumption is that had to do with the period of time when the board was actually running the hospital itself before Little River came in. But I don't understand what the $3.5 million was spent for, and I would like to understand that and the counting of that amount. So if you could address that at some point. And so we have $7.5 million of debt for the hospital board. That is the debt for the citizens of Houston County. So what is the plan to repay that debt in the future? Or is it going to be, the notes are going to come due, they're going to mature. Can the hospital board pay off those debts, or will they have to renegotiate those loans in the future? I'd just like to understand that a little bit better. Also, when we met 3 weeks ago at the first public meeting, we talked about inventory and making sure that Little River, again, I would say, with all due respect to the CEO, you know, we wanted to make sure that the equipment and materials, the supplies that were here that had been paid for by the citizens of Houston County would stay here. And the CEO of Timberland said they were going to do an inventory. And I said, well, that's great if he does inventory, but he's an employee of Little River. You know, we are looking at the board of the hospital district to be our go-to people. You can outsource it, but you cannot outsource the accountability. So was an inventory done? Are we still whole? Everything that was here is still in place from whenever the doors were locked, or from June, I could think 22nd, whenever Little River said they were pulling out. At that point, there should have been an inventory to make sure that everything that we own here in the county stays within our county. And then I guess the last question I have is around internal controls, because it was a surprise, it seemed like a surprise that Little River pulled out of this agreement with Houston County and running the hospital. And as I said, you can outsource the operation, but you cannot outsource the accountability. So what were the internal controls that the hospital district had in place for the contract with Little River? What have you learned? If those controls were not significant enough, then what controls do you plan to put in place in the future? And the last question I have, okay. 5 minutes worth of questions, is when will the 2016 audit for the Houston County Hospital District Board be, or the hospital district, be available for public review?
That was quite a few questions. I don't think we're quite prepared to address all of them. If you would present those in writing to us, I'll be happy to answer them.
Let's just be honest about some things. For years, we have tried to have a hospital. We have had a hospital. We have had great hospitals. But the bottom line to it, there have been a number of tries. In reality, will we have a hospital? Can we afford a full-fledged hospital? Or do we need an emergency care with maybe 3 rooms where we can access other hospitals? I mean, how many tries do we continue with a hospital? Do we have the tax base to support it? Are we going to be able to take care of the indigent? In reality, are we going to be able to have a hospital? Now, those are things that's costing us Millions of dollars are running up. And I want a hospital. But things have changed throughout the world. You don't get put in a hospital unless you're dying. Let's just be honest about it. And so there's not the volume. When you only have 4 or 5 patients in a hospital, it cannot support a full-fledged hospital. So, be upfront with us, and I know you're trying to. But can we afford a hospital? That's my question.
That's a very good question. And the answer is we cannot. We cannot afford a full-fledged hospital. It will be if it comes to pass, it will be a smaller, leaner, very small operation. Okay? It will, you might think of it as almost an urgent care, although the laboratory and an imaging capability will be key for that type of care. But our discussions in the board and with many of the other people who have come to us is that a full-fledged, great big old hospital is not going to happen. It's going to be a much scaled-down enterprise if we can get there.
I think that your assessment was spot on, realistic. And those are exactly the questions that we have been dealing with for the last 20 days or so. After the big shock of Little River walking in and telling us what they were going to do. And so those are the questions that we are assessing. And as you can see from the presentation by Christus and what our immediate plan is that you voted on tonight, we're going to take not baby steps, but small steps to assure that we bring as much viable health care to our community as we possibly can within the resources that we have available to us and what we can accrue. And so that's basically it, and I appreciate your question.
How does the cost of the Crockett Hospital compare to the operating cost of other hospitals in rural areas across the state of Texas?
Of course, I can't answer that question off the top of my head either. So, and I don't know that there is an answer to that because the hospital that was here was run by Timberlands. We could give cost information for the period that the district ran the hospital, but I don't know that we would have readily available that information unless you would like us to hire a consultant to try to.
But wouldn't that have been